What?
Oh yeah? When is that, Wednesday?
Thursday.
I'm not going to be here.
You going?
I'm going to Vienna.
Mamish?
I'm going to just book, that's the took one. Just booked the flight. The ch.א-ח.ב. This is everyone's. I don't know. I had booked an open ticket for now. ח.א-ח.ב. This is should be schus for shleim for my father. I give you the benzoiza.
Hello, you going to say l'chaim?
I'm not. Zag. ח.א-ח.ב.
Happy quarter l'chaim. That's father. Only because it's your father. Otherwise, yeah.
Should have been a first name.
Amen.
Amen.
Up.
Spill.
That's it. That's a good
I
sign.
believe that, yeah.
It's a good
The
sign.
tablecloth needs cleaning anyway.
Okay. Anyways, I just when a phone call, so I was just reminded of a story my father had many years ago. He left bells. My father left bells, and he ran away in the middle of Seder. He threw his suitcase out the window, jumped out the window, and ran to ח.א-ח.ב. because he was told by Sadia Libelov, he was told by him that if you go out to Sal, there's one person you should go meet, and that's Shlomo Chaim Kesselman on ח.א-ח.b. If I remember the story correct. So that's why he knew he has to go to ח.א-ח.b. Anyways, he runs to ח.א-ח.b, and at some point he has to go visit, he has to face the choir, right? He has to face the choir. He comes back to Belz for a visit for Shabbos.
Wait,
He has uncles.
in Israel already?
In Israel, yeah. Not only that, I had a great uncle that had connections. In Belz, the system works is that I think the system works is you sign up for the yeshiva system, and they assign you which yeshiva you're going to go to.
There's a bunch.
So they're all under the same bells, and just they assign you. You're going to go to Tel Aviv.
Sniff here, you get dumped.
Yeah. The ones that are sitting closer,
Software to dump you in this.
the ones that are sitting closer to the pot, the people with
get to the
the
better
us, or the
place.
people with they get to learn in Yerushalayim next to the Louvre. Where they moved from Tel Aviv to Yerushalayim then. So my great uncle had some connections. He pulled some strings and he put my father in Yerushalayim. And my father didn't even last a month there, and he jumped out the window and ran away. And then he came back because his parents came and his uncles and his aunts, and he had to face the choir.
Well, they came to ח.א-ח.ב?
No, they came to Israel, so they came to Israel for a visit. So he had to go visit. He said daven with them, and he and basically they found out that's the guy. If I'm not mistaken, also being a Lubavitcher now, and now you all suddenly care about Kiddush Torah hearing very well. So he pushed himself a little closer to hear better, and the Belzuva at the time asked, like, who's this guy, who's this Bacha? Because my father looked like the regular Levush, up hat, the long back, payas. So I pushed him, so who's this guy? He says, this is
an advisor.
yeah. So after the Belzuva set up Satvat Torah, and he set up a few Kabbalah words, and I think it was Pashat Vaychi actually. One of these parshas, he set up a Kavah, but I don't know exactly exactly this. And after he was done, his friends come over to him and says, you want to give him a chelek? He said, what are you running to Lubavitch for? Because they learn Kabbalah in Zion. Look, the Rebbe just gave a whole speech in Zion, and not everyone understood it. So he told him that what he taught, the 13-year-old boy that learns basic chassidus knows. And it's not a big chiddush that this Rebbe says. So they heard that. It's like, okay, on the table. And we're gonna okay, hold on 1 second. Before you shmais, I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you a story like this.
This is your father's.
My father, yeah. It says a story like this. It says that there was a chassid that came to, I forgot which Rebbe, and he had problems with machshavas others. He had, these thoughts that the racing thoughts, and he didn't know how to get rid of them. And he went to Zebbe told him, go to Alan Kalina. I believe it was Alan Kalina. Go to Alan Kalina, have a tzaddik, he'll help you out. So he went to Alan Kalina, and Alan Kalina walked by, and he gave him a zetz on his platza, and he said a pasuk. I forgot which one right now. I asked my brother which pasuk. And that moment, no more machshavas, no more any bad thoughts. So fine. So then the Bank turns to him and says, he goes to Vichida, so thank him afterwards. So thank him. And then the Bank says, no, maybe you stay here. Become my chassid. So it said, with mafsim, we don't become a chassid. Because it was a Lubavitcher chassid. I think it was a Lubavitcher chassid. So said, okay. He walked out, and as he walked out, he tripped, broke his legs. And so the chassid turned around and told Anglin, getting pitch, with hitting someone, wird man echt nicht gechasset. So my father said, now if you want, schmeiß. So l'chaim, ich glaube, Shleima,
Amen.
Kloiba, l'chaim, Baruch. Okay, Daf Zayin. No, sorry, Daf Ches Amud Aleph. Daf Ches Amud Aleph. What? Oh, shkoyach. Okay, we started the Gemarrah on top with the two dotted lines. We started the Gemarrah on top. Let's just restart it again. In our Mishnah, it said there's a machlokas between the male. We found out it's the male and Blatt and Reb Shimon. When is the cutoff date? When is the Rosh Hashana for Maseches? Have animals that are born throughout the year. At a certain point, you cut off and say these are animals that are born the previous years, and the animals that will be born from now on belong to the next year. What difference does it make? It makes a difference when you have to give Maisel Beim, when you have to count all the animals, and as soon as you hit number 10, that belongs to the Beis Hamikdash. So how do you make it? And it has to be from the newborns. How do you know how to calculate the newborns? So you have to set a date. So the mayor says the date is ח.א-ח.ב, the first day in Elul, and the Blatt Shimon says it's the first of Tishrei. And the Gemarrah is now going to try to understand the reasoning, the source that each one says what they say. We're going to ask questions and they come with a different conclusion and a different reasoning. Says the Gemarrah, Blatt Shimon oimrim be'echav Tishrei. Omer Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said, U'shnei mikra echad. This is the way Rabbi Yochanan is learning it. Later on we're going to see the others learns it from Shab.
What line are you on?
Ches Amud Aleph on top by the two dots. U'shneihem mikra echad, and both use the same pasuk to teach us that Aleph Elul or Aleph Tishrei is Rosh Hashana for Ma'aseh Behema. What's the pasuk? Shenema, it says a pasuk in Tehillim, Lovshu kol matzoin, that the animals, the tzoin, the flock, Lovshu kolim, they are enclosed with something warm, but Va'amakim yatfabah, and Va'amakim in the valleys yatfabah, they are covered with grass, with bal, which is I said last week we had Yosef Amash bal. Yosef would give out food. Bal is called food, produce. So the pasuk says that the flock of sheep, of goats, will enclose themselves in something, and the valleys will be covered. And you saw and they're going to jump and they're going to sing. Tosfos here says right away, all the meforshim go with Tosfos, basically telling us that this is a clean way of saying that the animals become pregnant during this period. And now the machlekes is, the argument is going to be, when do the animals become pregnant? Do they become pregnant in Adar, or do they become pregnant in Nisan? Okay, Lavshu Kadam Atzoin means that the flock, the tzoin, the goats, the sheep become pregnant. Lavshu means that they're now enclosing something in themselves. They have not a fetus, what is it called by an animal? They have a calf, yeah. So that's Lavshu Kadam Atzoin. And now the question is going to be, when is that date? Is it Aleph? Is it in Adar that this happens, or is it in Nisan that it happens? And how does it translate to El and Tisha? It's very simple, because we know that a behemoth daka, an animal like a sheep, goat, their gestational period, what's it called? It's 5 months. Become pregnant. 5 months later, they give birth. Was that also decided by Adam Mukava? What are we holding? So,
It was decided that the animals will have 5 month
pregnancy?
pregnancy.
No, that's
Was that decided before, like 5th day or the 6th day or ch.א-ח.ב?
I don't know, but it's a fact. It's a fact. It is known that these animals, their pregnancy is 5 months. Okay. So they're pregnant 5 months. Now, if they become pregnant in Adar, 5 months later is Av. If they're all giving birth in Av, then it makes sense that the closest date is Aleph Elul, the first day of Elul. Make that Rosh Hashana for Ma'aseh Behema. Make that the cutoff date to saying that these animals are born last year and these animals the next year.
Because it's Shaykh of a little bit towards the end of Elul.
Yeah, any time in Av, it's possible. The same thing also, the other opinion says that it's in Tishrei. that the animals become pregnant in Nisan, and anytime in Elul they give birth, and then Aleph Tishrei. So that's the opinion. The question is, how do you see it in the pasuk? So and he reads like this. The pasuk says three things: love shakal matzayin, that the animals enclose something in them, and the valleys are full now with food. Yisrael v'shir, they sing and dance. Three things: animals, valley, and singing and dancing. Ameir says like this.
What does it mean, sing and dance?
You'll see in a moment. When do the animals enclose themselves? When do they become pregnant? When do they do that? When the valley becomes full, covered with food. When does that happen? In the beginning of spring. When is the beginning of spring? In Adam. So Ba'adam is Abbas. So Misabas is Ba'adav. Yald is Ba'av. 5 months later is Av. So therefore, Shoshana Shalem Elul. Abelazar says the opposite. Abelazar says different. It says, skip the part about the valley. Just read the first part of the pasuk and the last part of the pasuk. Abelazar, Rabbi Shimon Aimer said, "Love shukah matzon." When do they become pregnant? Bisman shisuah v'shiur. When the stalks of wheat move in the wind as if they're jumping and they're singing and they're playing. That is not v'shiur. When they are moving around. When is that? Not in the beginning when it starts growing, but when it's fully grown, which isn't already deep in spring, Nisan, because right after Nisan you start cutting the oimek, start cutting the fields. When do they become full? When do they say Shira? But Nisan, it says in other places that there's a whole thing about every single creation in the world says Shira. The animals, the dog, the sheep. There's a pasuk for everything, and a pasuk for shibalim, for wheat stock, is this pasuk. What do the shibalim say? This pasuk. Anyway, so this is the shira. So when can they say shira? In Nisan, when they are full. But Misabas b'Nisan, the animals become pregnant in Nisan. 5 months later, V'yaldas be'Elul, Shoshana Shlem Tisha. Okay, so they have one pasuk, and they decide how to learn it. One says there's 3 items in the pasuk. I'm going to look at item 1 and 2. Item 1 means they become pregnant. Number 2 means when, which is in Adam. The say we look at item 1 and 3. Item 1 means to become pregnant. Item 3 is when it sings Shira, which is already in Nisan. Okay. But now the pasuk contains another piece. According to both, the pasuk contains, according to the male, he's not doing anything with Yisrael Shira that they're singing. According to the Blatt Shimon, he's not doing anything with the fact that the valley is full of food. So the Gemarrah, ve'idach nami yoksiv Yisrael v'shir. According to the male, it says Yisrael v'shir. What are you going to do with that pasuk? And for the Gemarrah, hu ba'flasa. These are the delayed pregnancies. If an animal became pregnant later and has the baby now in Elul, I'm letting you know that those animals are also part in that Perek Tehillim. It speaks about it's machlokes of what the Perek Tehillim speaks about, but in some it speaks about the Golos, some it speaks about Mashiach, but it basically speaks about that eventually things will be nice. And one of the things is it talks about how the animals will have offspring and the wheat is going to grow. The pasuk is telling you that regularly the animals become pregnant in Adar. They will give birth in Av. However, there's some animals don't worry that they're not becoming pregnant in Adar because their pregnancy is delayed and they'll have a baby in Elul. But the cutoff date is still Aleph Elul because most animals have a baby in Av. That's what he's saying. That Ba'aflasa, the delayed ones, the Havin bin Nisan, they become pregnant in Nisan. Ve'idach, and Alav Shimon, he says, take the first part of the pasuk that the animals become pregnant, but when you skip the middle part and go and say that it's Yisrael v'shir, it's Nisan, what is he going to do with this pasuk that says that the valleys are covered with food? And for the Gemarrah, the opposite. These are talking about the animals that become pregnant early. And they become pregnant other, according to him. Most animals become pregnant Nisan. And according to him, some animals become pregnant other. So everything is beautiful. If you look at the pasuk, it's item 1, item 2, and item 3. That mayor says, item 1 is the fact that they're becoming pregnant. Item 2 tells you the time when they all become pregnant. Item 3, there are some that are delayed. According to the other opinion, item 1 is become pregnant. Skip. They become pregnant in Nisan, and sometimes they become pregnant in Adar. If that's how the pasuk should have read then a little bit different in order to make it in a chronological order. It should have said animals become pregnant Love shakol matzoin, animals become pregnant when when it's Nisan. And also ve'af, and it also happens that they become pregnant in Adam. Basically, you have a pasuk with three things. He says use item 1 and item 3, and then go to item 2. So basically, the Gemara is asking, switch them around. According to him, the pasuk has to be switched around in order to make it sound smooth. Everything is good as it is written. Love shakol matzoin. In the beginning, the animals become pregnant. When is that? When the valley becomes full, covered with food. Ve'ikanami, that the last part of the pasuk, you saw for sure. There's also the one that are delayed. The pasuk would have to be written differently. How would the pasuk have to be written? Love shakol matzoin. When do the animals become pregnant? When the stalks start singing and swaying in the wind. There's also some that are early. So the pasuk doesn't match. So this whole pshat, Rabbi Yochanan said that the whole, where do we learn from that the Ma'aseh Be'em is either Aleph El or Aleph Tisha is from this pasuk. But the Gemara is asking a question. It doesn't make sense. You can't explain it according to the blatt of Hashem. Therefore, Rava comes and tells us a whole different pshat. Ela Amar Rava. There's no disagreement. In general, it's hard to have a machlokes in a fact. You can check, go to the field and check when did it become pregnant. It's an easy way to You're going to have machlokes and you're going to check when did it give birth. It's a machlokes in a fact, and you can't have machlokes in that. So Rava says no. Everyone agrees the animals become pregnant Adam and they give birth in Av. The difference is going to be how to learn a different pasuk. Let's see. Amar the Kula Alma, everyone agrees, love shakol matzoin. When do the animals become pregnant? Bisman shamokim yatfbal, be'odal. When do they become pregnant? Everyone agrees they become pregnant. Odal. Now they're arguing about a different pasuk. Where does it say that animals have to be tithed? They have to give ma'aser.
You said there were late ones and early ones?
Correct.
So everyone agrees in what?
Everyone agrees that all animals generally become pregnant in Adon and generally give birth in Av. Some are late, some are early. That's still possible. That's still shaykh. But for the sake of this pasuk, love shakol matzon, everyone agrees when do the animals become pregnant? When the valley becomes full. And there are also some delayed and some early. But they are arguing with different pasuk. It says in the pasuk, the source of teaching us that animals have to be tithed is a pasuk asa to asa. The pasuk says asa to asa is kol tevu zarecho, and the pasuk continues on and says the whole thing about animals as well. So over there, b'shnei ma'aser kosim davar. The pasuk speaks about two types of ma'aser: echad ma'aser behema, ve'echad ma'aser dagan. One, it's talking about ma'aser behema, and one, it's talking about ma'aser of produce, of wheat. So now the question is, which one is the primary, and which one do you learn from the primary? Is the primary ma'aser behema and ma'aser dagan, we'll say, is like ma'aser behema, or is the primary ma'aser dagan produce, wheat, and we learn ma'aser behema from it? The main thing is ma'aser dagan. What's ma'aser dagan? Wheat. When are you chayev to give ma'aser? When it comes to wheat, when is it? As it gets ready. When it's done, when it's ready, when you take it off the field, you're chayev ma'aser. So what is it? At the end, when it's done. The same thing also is coming to teach us of ma'aser behema. When do you have to give ma'aser behema? As close as possible when the animal is finished. When is the animal finished? When it's born. Which is all going to be an Aleph El. So basically he's comparing ma'aser behema to ma'aser dagan. Just like ma'aser dagan usually finishes off, that type of ma'aser dagan finishes off whenever it's finished, that's when you're chayev to give the ma'aser. The same thing goes to animals. When they finish, when they become born, that's when you chayev ma'aser. Okay. Rabbi Shimon, Savi, a very simple hekesh. Makish ma'aser behema ma'aser dagan. He compares ma'aser behema to ma'aser dagan. Ma ma'aser dagan Rosh Hashana shaloi tishrei. I said something wrong before. Ma'aser dagan is the primary, but the question is, how do you compare it to ma'aser dagan? So he says he compares ma'aser dagan a different way. When is ma'aser dagan? Don't tell me ending, beginning. When is ma'aser dagan? Everyone agrees ma'aser dagan is Rosh Hashana, is in Tishrei. Av ma'aser behema Rosh Hashana shel Tishrei. So that's the machlokes in our Mishnah. According to Meir, the fact, according to Meir, ma'aser behema is Aleph Elul, not because of any interesting calculations about pregnancies, But a simple thing: when is the animal complete? When the animal is complete, that's when you're chayav ma'aser. Just like wheat. And Rabbi Shimon says the opposite. It's Aleph Tishrei. Why? Because just like Ma'aser Dagan is Aleph Tishrei, and in Ma'aser Behema is written the same pasuk of Ma'aser Dagan, so the dates will be the same dates. Okay, that's the end of this Gemarrah.
I don't quite understand how Rava learns it, that now the three phases in the pasuk flow.
Because the you don't have to get confused now with the three phases anymore. There's Lav Shekad Matzoin. Everyone agrees that means they become pregnant. Everyone agrees when did they become pregnant? Amokim Yat Fabad. When the valleys are full of food. Then the pasuk finishes off. Yeah, some animals are late. That's it. Well, that's it. That has nothing to do now with what we are learning about Ma'aser. Abba says that pasuk, you take it out, strike it out. It just teaches you that the animals become pregnant. It's a fact. It teaches you animals become pregnant. Other than they give birth in Adam. Done. Asa to Asa, that they both mention the same. Now I have a machlokes. Does it mean that we are comparing it to Ma'aser Dagan because it's date? Ma'aser Dagan has a certain date, and we're comparing to the date, the same date, or is it just like Ma'aser Dagan at the end? That's when you're chayav to give the Ma'aser, and therefore also the behema when it's finished you're chayav Ma'aser, and that date could be different. But Ma'aser Behema, Ma'aser Dagan is different. ח.א-ח.ב Shana l'shanim. Okay, the Gemarrah continues on. The Mishnah continued on and gave us another Rosh Hashana. The first day of Tishrei is Rosh Hashana for the years. So the Gemarrah is going to ask a question. Tell me what difference does it make for us to know that the first day of Tishrei is Rosh Hashana for the years? The Papa geantwortet, Lishtadas, for contracts. Now, we already had this Gemarrah in a similar way, that if you have a contract and you don't know, and there's no year written in the date, and you write a certain date, and we basically said that if you, let's say, borrow money from someone, and you say that this field is gonna is what's it called, is collateral to the loan. If I don't pay back, you can take from the field. There's also a concept of so Reuven borrows money from Shimon, and Reuven borrows from Shimon. Reuven has a field, and he tells Shimon, if I don't pay back, you can take from the field. Now Reuven goes and sells that field to Yehuda. So Shimon has a right to go, because it's like the field has a lien on it. Has a lien on it, kind of. Yeah, you can go over to Yehuda and take away the field. But when is that? Only if the field was sold before the star was written.
Then you can't take it back. Okay.
If the field was sold after the star was written, how do you know which year? If you write Kislev, I don't know, is it this year? Is it next year? We had this Gemarrah already before, calculations, all the back and forth. So, basically the same thing. That's the reason we need to know. But now the Gemarrah Kasha, in the beginning of the Gemarrah asked that Rosh Chodesh Nisan is Rosh Hashana l'Melachim, and the Gemarrah asks L'ma'ay L'chasa. The Gemarrah answers L'shtadas, the same answer. So make up your mind: is Rosh Chodesh Nisan for shtadas? Is Rosh Hashana for shtadas? So the Gemarrah about nan be'echad b'Nisan Shalom L'achim v'amrina L'ma'ay L'chasa v'ma'avchiz L'shtadas. We said that the first day of Nisan is also for shtadas, and with the Gemarrah like Kasha. Kan le malchis, kan malch umas oilam. We had this Gemarrah already. Chodesh Nisan is Rosh Hashana l'Melachim for the Yidden, and they count the shtadas for the Yiddish kings. And Hashana Aleph Tishrei is a Hashana for Goyish kings. And if you write a shtar with a Goyish king's date, then you use Tishrei as the cutoff date. And the Gemarrah, remember, if you guys recall, the Gemarrah had a whole thing of certain kings he did count as and then he counted a different, and the whole psukim was beautiful. Further Gemarrah Kasha. Ela hoda amar ח.א.ח.ב. ח.א.ח.b later on said, Lo shanu el malchis Yisrael. ח.א.ח.b said, in that Gemarrah that we learned, ח.א.ח.b gave an answer that this whole Nisan is only for Jewish kings. But he's teaching us a new concept that we would have not known from the Mishnah, And he's telling us that you should know that Goysha kings count from Tishrei. If you say Aleph Tishrei is a Shana L'Shonim, why? For Shtadas. Because he counted according to the Goysha kings. So it is clearly written in our Mishnah that the Goysha kings, Rosh Hashana, is Aleph Tishrei, and not Aleph Nisan. Why then would Rav Chisda come teach us a Chiddush? You should know. From the Mishnah would have not known. I'm telling you, Aleph Nisan is Jewish kings. Aleph Tishrei is Goysha kings. Again, it says in the Mishnah, Aleph Nisan is the Shana for Melachim. Rav Chisda comes and tells you should know that the Melachim that we're mentioning, the kings we're mentioning, is Jewish kings. I'm teaching you a Chiddush that you would have not known by continuing in the Mishnah, that the Rosh Hashana for the Goysha kings is Aleph Tishrei. Okay? That's Rav Chisda is teaching us a new concept, a Chiddush. And the Gemarrah, the Mishnah continues and tells us Aleph Tishrei is a Shana for Shanim. The Gemarrah asks why, and it tells us what's the difference. We're talking about Goysha kings. So now Rav Chisda's Chiddush is redundant. You're saying that you can only learn. I'm telling you a Chiddush, but from the Mishnah you would have not known. But in the Mishnah it says clearly Aleph Tishrei is a Shana for Shtadas, is a Shana for Shanim, which means Shtadas, which means Goysha kings. So we know clearly. Rav Chisda Masnisen Osel Hashmina. Rav Chisda is coming to teach us a Chiddush that is clearly written in the Mishnah. Can be loy. The Gemarrah says no. Rav Chisda doesn't have that in mind. Rav Chisda wants to teach us the psukim, that teaches when is a Goysha king's Shana and when is a Jewish king's Shana. If you remember all the psukim, we went through a bunch of psukim, a page, almost a page. Rav Chisda Masnisen, Rav Chisda Kroyos Lashmini. He wants to teach us the psukim that teach us that Nisan is a Shana for Jewish kings and Tisha is a Shana for Goysha kings. One answer. V'ibay Seimem, Rav Chisda ke Rav Zela Masnila. Rav Chisda is teaching us like Rav Zela. So now we are touching upon Kiddush HaChodesh. Not yet. It's on 10 pages. We're going to touch Kiddush HaChodesh much more. And hopefully, if we learn this right, then we will understand a little bit what goes on in the Rambam. But Chisda learns like Rav Zela. The Masnila, the Rav Zela Masnila. The Rav Zela Amar Litkufa. Rav Zela teaches that why is it important to know that the Rosh Hashana, Aleph Tishrei, is a Shana for the year, to teach us when are the yearly seasons. What are the seasons? There's 4 seasons. Tkufas Hashana, there's 4. There's Nisan, Tammuz, Tishrei, and Teves. Pretty much Nisan, 2.5 months, and 3 months later Tammuz, Tishrei, Teves. What are these? What is these Tkufas? The Tkufas is when does the sun appear in the constellations of Nisan, which is, I know Tammuz is Cancer, Tammuz is Satan, Tishrei is Maznaim, is Scale, Teves is, I forgot, you can look it up. But anyways, those 4 constellations. There's Cancer, there's Ram, and there is a
Pisces.
No, that's of. That's a lion. It's of.
Pisces is the dog.
No. So there's fish is Adar. Teves is, one second. Teves is, I know this. Nisan is Tole. Tammuz is Satan. Tishrei is Maznaim, and Teves is Bitcoin. I don't know. Anyways, so when the sun appears in those constellations, that starts with Kufa. It's a couple days. The whole thing is a couple days. Now, Rav Zera is telling us that when do we start counting the Kufas? You count it from Rosh Hashana. What's the whole machlokes? There's a machlokes whether the world was created Tishrei or the world was created Nisan. And it's a huge difference if you say Nisan or Tishrei. What? So that's so. What's Tishrei? What's Nisan? A ram? No.
Taurus is the bull. That's
Is an Aries, ram.
Oh, so ram and a goat, a sheep, whatever. I guess. Anyway, so there's a machlokes when the world was created, and if you say the world was created Tishrei, then the tkufas are calculated one way. If you say the world was created Nisan, the tkufas are calculated a different way. How exactly it's calculated? Right, because the whole thing exactly, the calculation, you have to go back, and Rambam actually disagrees with Tosfos here. I think we understood. Rambam disagrees with Tosfos. The halacha we accept, and this is brought down in the Gemarrah, it'll be brought down in the Gemarrah here, is that we paskin that the world was created in Elul, and therefore the cheshbon of Noach, etc., was according to Elul. Elul. So Bezvov, the Aleph Tishrei is the 6th day of creation. That's when Adam Mishnah was created. That's when Rosh Hashana. Therefore, the whole Noach, the Mabel, was in Cheshvan, because that if you remember in Noach, there's a whole Bachloikas. But when it comes to Tkufas, we hold like a Beshua, which we start. The Tkufas starts with Nisan, but it doesn't start the Nisan after creation. It starts the Nisan before creation. So kind of go back 6 months. And what did I explain? That the world was created in 6 days. So each day is considered a year. Yom Echad Chosh V'Shana. So a month or something. Anyway, so basically
Before Tishrei.
Yeah, so basically before Tishrei, you calculate the Tkufa backwards, and that's when you start counting the Tkufas, and that's how you calculate it. And that's basically the beginning of when the Kiddush HaChodesh Shalom gets very thick and deep. That's the first halacha that's discussed. Has a one large halacha discusses exactly how this whole thing works. Anyway, so that's the machlokes. So the Zela says that no, I hold that for Tkufas we start counting from Tishrei, not from Nisan, and that's why it's important for us to know when is Aleph Tishrei. You have to go back all the way to B'dias Oilam, but you start counting the Kufa from Tishrei, not from Nisan. That's basically the machlokes here. And ח.א.ח.ב is coming to teach you that I agree with Abzela that we start counting the Kufas, and that's why he says that that's what he meant when he said that Rosh Hashana Aleph Nisan is Hashana L'Melachim for Jewish kings, but Aleph Tishrei is for Goyish kings. He meant Tkufas. He didn't mean Goyish kings. He meant Tkufas. Okay. Rabbi says that Hashana Aleph Tishrei is for Tkufas. Here, and it goes according to the Shit of Rabbi Lezer, the Olam Tishrei for Olam, that in Tishrei the world was created, not like Rabbi Yeshua. Rav Nachman Yitzchak says that what's Rav Chizda saying? Oh, the Rav Chizda tells us a new answer. When the Gemarrah says, when the Mishnah says that the first of day of Tishrei is Hashan L'Shanim, is Ladin, the way we know it. That's the day we are judged. The Chsiv Mereish Hashana Vad Ach Hashana. From the beginning of the year to the end of the year, that's when the Yidden are being judged. From the beginning of the year, we are judged what should be the entire year until the end of the year. So the question now is, how do you know that Hashana, when it says Reish Hashana, it means Tishrei? When the Tishrei, how do you know that this is Tishrei? Maybe it's a different day. And for the Gemarrah, the Chsiv Tiku b'Chodesh Shofar, a pasuk in Tehillim, you should blow b'Chodesh when the moon renews. You should blow the shofar. B'Kesel Yom Chagenu. B'Kesel means really means something else, but here we're going to teach it that it's hidden. That which day of the month is the moon hidden? Which yontif exists in a world that during that yontif the moon is not shown? Which month, which yontif do we have that the chodesh, the new moon, is hidden? However, it's only Hashanah, because any other month, even Shavuos, which is only 7 days in, you see the moon already. Well, the moon is hidden. So Rashi says l'choikim. The moon is not fully hidden, according to Rashi. Rashi says, basically explains like this. We know that the moon and the sun, the way it works is, this is the world, let's say this is the sun, and this is the moon. When it's totally like this, we don't see it. The sun, the earth blocks the light to the moon, and we don't see the moon, right? That's usually how it works. So as the sun moves, and the moon moves in different directions, we're going to start seeing the moon. The rays, when it's like this, we see the full moon. That's on the middle of the Chodesh. The sun is over here, the moon is in the middle, and we see the full moon. But it basically says in the beginning, very, very much in the beginning of the month, what happens is that it moves a little bit, and the sun goes up in Mizrach, right? The sun goes all the way in east, in Mizrach. Australia, down there, first the sun goes up over there. The moon is now on the other side of the world. So in the morning, when the sun shines, the western side of the world cannot see the moon because the world is blocking, but the eastern side of the world, all the way east, can see a sliver. In the afternoon, when the sun sets and is over here or somewhere here, then the eastern side of the world can see a sliver of the sun, and the western world cannot see it. Basically, the sun and the moon, we're not going to go into detail right now, this is later on in Kiddush HaChodesh, but for simple practice, for simple purposes, in the morning, the east sees the sun, because the sun goes up in the east, so the east sees the moon, and at night, towards the evening, the west can see the sliver of the moon. But there is no time that the entire world can see the moon. That's the way Rashi explains, Shachodesh miskasaba, that the moon is hidden. So Rashi lechoikim, to the far places. It's hidden in the morning for east, and it's hidden in the evening for west.
It takes how long to go around? 30 days.
29 and a bit.
Whatever.
29 and... okay, so basically that's... What are you trying to tell you? That which yantav exists where the moon is hidden in some parts of the world, west or east, that's only Tisha. Tisha is the only yantav that falls out on the day that the moon is hidden. All the other tovim fall in the middle of the month, or Shavuos.
Saying Rosh Hashana is the only
yantav.
Because it's out.
Which are the Yom Kippur is Yud, you see the moon. Shavuos is Zayin, you see the moon, and obviously Sukkot and Nis and Pesach, you see the moon fully. There's no other yantav. So that's what it means. That how do you know that Tika b'chad shofar, when you should blow shofar? B'kesach Chagach. Fertig Gemarrah. Oh, the Gemarrah continues. It says Uchsiv, and it continues a pasuk right after Tika b'chad shofar. What does it say? Ki choik le'Yisrael. That's the day that choik, that the laws, the judgment is made for the Yidden. Mishpat, and a judgment is made l'Elkei Yaakov. Okay, so we know that the day that you blow shofar, the day that the yontiv happens, when the moon is hidden in some parts of the world, that day is a yontiv where people are judged, and that's why it's going back to what the Bitzchak is saying, that Hashanah L'Shani means what? L'din. That our day of judgment is on Aleph Tisha, because that's the only day that you have a yontiv that the moon is hidden, and and it says Maseches Rosh Hashana. That's when you start counting the beginning of the year, and that's when you see when the end of the year is.
The judgment is for both Jewish people and non-Jewish people alike?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, technically.
For judgment. Rosh Chodesh is also time for judgment.
Every Rosh Chodesh, yes, in a smaller scale, yeah. Tana Rabbanan. Now that we mention this pasuk, we're gonna mention. This says is very interesting, but it's really Kiddush HaChodesh stuff. Okay, Zak the Gemarrah Tana Rabbanan. Ki choik le'Yisrael u'mishpat le'Yaakov. We just mentioned this pasuk that it's a day of judgment, it's a day of law, it's choik le'Yisrael, mishpat, and a day of judgment Yaakov. Comes the Gemarrah and teaches you an amazing thing. Melamed shem bezdin shel mayla nichnosim, that the bezdin shel mayla waits for us down here to decide when it's Hashanah. Can you imagine a bezdin shel mayla sits and says, what day am I going to judge the Eden? I can't decide until down here they decide what day is Hashanah. Chavtes Elul comes, and tomorrow is going to be Shoshana. Lamaila says, okay, now I know. I can't do it unless the Eden tell me. The Abishah can't do a move with the day of judgment until the Eden tell him. Until the Bezdin Shlamata says that the Chodesh is Imekudosh. Tani Yidach. Another blatt similar. Ki choik le'Yisrael hu ein li el Yisrael. Fact that we learned in this second blatt divides it differently. It says Ki choik le'Yisrael, that this is the day of law, of judgment for the Eden. Ein li el Yisrael. Only Eden are judged. From this we would have known that only Eden are judged on Rosh Hashana. The Umas are eliminated. How do we know that the Goyim are also judged on Rosh Hashana? Talmud loima mishpat le'Elkei Yaakov. Now we are mentioning again a mishpat. We're mentioning to the lower name of Yaakov and not Yisrael. This goes on the Goyim. How exactly this goes on the Goyim? Had a hard time figuring exactly how do you say that Elkei Yaakov goes on the Goyim. I saw some pshatim. I still haven't figured it out. Maybe I will. If anyone knows how this works, there's no Rashi here. There's a Sifsacham which I just looked up but I didn't understand. Anyways, but it basically we're going to take this with a Muna Pshuta that Choik L'Sol is the Yidden and Mishpal Kiyakiv is a Goyim. Im Kein Mata Amed Loimar what's the Chazal in Yisrael Muslim Nat Amed Mishpal Kiyakiv became Mata Loimar Choik L'Sol. The Lekei Yaakov basically means everyone, all the creations in the world, including the Goyim. Why do you have to teach us? Give us a pasuk Chol Yisrael. That the Yidden go in first into the day of judgment. The Amar of Chizda, Melech v'Tzibo. If a king has a mishpat, has a court case, and everyone else has a court case, who goes in first? Melech Nisras Tchila. The king goes in first. Shenema Mishpat Avdai or Mishpat Amish. Shlomo Melech said that there is a mishpat of his servant, talking about himself. He's a servant of the king. And Mishpat Amr, then the everyone else goes in. What's the reason the king goes first? My time. Iboy said one answers, Lav it's not the it's not respectful that the king waits outside while the court case, the court cases are going on. And the same thing applies also for the Yidden, that it's not respectful to the Yidden wait to be judged until the Goyim are judged. So the Yidden are first. Make Yidden great again. The king goes in first. The same thing, Yidden goes in first because as the day goes on and the Eibishter hears all the bad things, the Eibishter might get angry. So before the Eibishter gets too angry, the Yidden go in first, and then let the Eibishter let out the anger on the Goyim. Okay. There is an interesting Tosfos here. Shachodesh Miskasaba. We're not going to do a whole Tosfos, but the beginning of Tosfos teaches us the same thing, that the moon is in different parts of the world, is hidden in different parts of the world. 3 lines from the wide lines. It says like this. V'arav Reb Meshulam Mefadash. Reb Meshulam teaches like this. What's Pshat? Shachodesh Miskasaba, that the moon is hidden. She'ein Chatos Rosh Hashana. On Rosh Hashana, you do not bring a korban chatos. Every Rosh Chodesh, the last pasuk that we do in the clear, Asirim izim echad lechatos, you have to bring a korban, a soil, a goat, for chatos. So the B'Sholem tells you that what does it mean, Shachodesh miskaseba, that is a concept of Rosh Chodesh, that you bring a korban chatos does not exist on Rosh Hashana. That means Rosh Chodesh miskaseba. It doesn't take away from what we learned in the Gemarrah. It's just another Tosfos is bringing a few interesting different concepts. So B'Sholem says we don't bring a korban chatos.
Bring a chatas for what on Rosh Chodesh? What sin did you commit?
It's a general for the Nichnas, Migdash, Kedosh, I believe, Tumah, Tahala, that type of thing. It's a communal chatos, and I believe it's I have to look it up, but I believe it's for certain communal sins that can happen if you go into the Migdash Tameh or things like that. Rosh Chodesh basically is saying we don't bring this korban chatos. She'ein chatos korban Rosh Hashana k'dichsiv. What do we say right before we say Oleinu l'shabeach? Milvad oilas hachodesh u'minchasa. We say that aside for the oil of the chodesh, we don't say chatos. We say oil of chodesh u'minchasa. It says you bring all the kabbanos of Shoshana, and you don't bring and aside for the korban oil. And the pasuk doesn't mention that you bring all the kabbanos Shana. This is aside for korban chatos and oil. Okay, so the B'Sholem says no korban chatos of Chodesh on a Shana. Vikshel Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam, 4 lines in. Rabbeinu Tam had a question. The Bereish Sefter the Shavuos, Tanya. In the beginning of the Sefter Shavuos, we learned this is supposed to be Lamed Beis, that 32 Seirim Makrivim Soil B'Chol Shana. If you count throughout the year, the Yidden bring exactly 32 male goats as a korban. And the Choshev Yud Beis Berosh Chodashim. It counts 12 male goats on Rosh Chodesh. 12 means including Tishrei. So you do bring the korban chatos in Tishrei. And then the Tosfos goes on and says, why are we lucky we're Chabad? Because we have a machzor that is very short. Even though we can end up 2 o'clock, or if you're down the 3 o'clock, but in other places they start 8 o'clock in the morning. They also finish 3 o'clock because they open up the machzor, and the machzor has a ton of putim, ton of yotzes, and every piece is a what's it called. And then they start picking and choosing. Some people this, that. Sagt Rabbeinu Tam, Ubeäufen the Musa of Rosh Hashana, in the place v'chayis hashehena merbois, there's a yotzes that says chayis hashehena. I don't know what that is, obviously. I've never read it. But Yosef Abelazar Kalil, Abelazar Kalil was a very famous poet. He wrote a lot of the piyutim. What did he write? What does he write here? Musvei chodesh, that including in the kabbanas is the musaf of chodesh. Ashtei asle, 11 kabbanis, additional kabbanis you bring on a Shoshana, just like any Rosh Chodesh. What kind of 11 kabbanis do you bring on Rosh Chodesh? Every Rosh Chodesh you have to bring 11 kabbanis. Podim, bnei baka shnayim, ayil so two podim, ayil echod, shiva kvasim, and siyah zemechad lechatos. 11. So the Rabbi Lezer Koli wrote in the Yitzes that in Rosh Hashanah we bring 11 like a Chodesh. Another proof to tell us how he would have not written it had we not done it. So here's also proof to tell us that there's a kol mechatos. Dahainu, pam in the baka shnayim v'ayil echod kvasim in the shana shiva v'sar lechape is 11. Okay, Rabbi Meshulam responded to the Rabbeinu Tam, and he told him like this: Ve'ishul Rabbeinu Tam. No, I didn't mean that we don't bring the kol mechatos. Shaloyam b'sheim b'musaf. We don't. I didn't say that we don't bring an additional kol mechatos on Rosh Hashanah for Chodesh. El miskase. What does it mean? It's hidden. Shalihiskir ch.א-ח.ב b'klal. That we don't mention the fact that this side of the chatos. Again, we say milvad oilas had chodesh or minchasa. We don't say mention the word chatos. But the truth is, you do bring a kol mechatos of Rosh Chodesh on Rosh Hashanah. Just the pasuk doesn't mention it, and that's what it means. Miskasa, that it's hidden, that it's concealed. The milvad k'mashishka. The oid pirish miskasa, another pirish miskasa means she'en maskir musaf shel chodesh b'tefillah. When he goes look through the musaf of Rosh Hashanah, you don't see going through the whole Rosh Chodesh thingy. Mishum damrinan, because it told us Rabbi Shimon Gamliel had a son. The basim kali, he had a very sweet voice. Ayel kame tevusa. He went in front of the Amud, the Teva, the Amud, and he davened. Kimat in the Rosh Chodashim, when he davened, and they didn't have an exact siddur, when he came to the part where you should mention Rosh Chodashim, ishtik, he didn't say anything. He didn't want to say. What did he say? He said the mutav shi'ov zakei v'kapel achayv. Rather, let the one that's zakai should come atone for the one that's chayev, and the one that's chayev should not come to atone for the one that's zakai. What does that mean? Pirush ahudu Rosh Chodesh kol chayev. Mishum damrin amar kadosh baruch hu v'yikapal. On Rosh Chodesh, the korban of Rosh Chodesh is called a chayev. I'm not going to mention a korban that calls the Yidden that we sinned and mention it in Rosh Hashanah. That's what Rabbi Shimon Gamliel's son did. I'm not going to mention a korban that shows us that we sinned. Atkan Hashoina. Okay, so Rabbi Sholem answered him and basically told him, and there's another answer that basically we do mention it, and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel's son didn't mention a Chodesh, and that means it's Kaza. Zot the Gemarrah, Rabbeinu Tam didn't agree with it, but Rabbeinu Tam, when he finished Milvad Oilas HaChodesh and Menchasa, Oilas HaTamid HaMenchasa, before he said, Alein Shabeach, he said, V'loi Milvad Oilas HaChodesh and L'Sayim, U'shnei Seirim L'Chapar, he finished off 2 Seirim L'Chapar, Chad Rosh Chodesh, Chad Rosh Hashana. That we do bring, that we bring a Kol Mechatos on Rosh Hashana, L'Chaim L'Chaim.